So what's happening in the Central Oregon market for plexes, 2, 3, and 4 unit properties? Well, today in this video, we're going to have a look at the statistics of the market reports for Bend's West side, the smallest of the overall areas, the smallest amount of overall data, so that you can know whether you're thinking about buying or you're thinking about selling, what's happening in terms of the overall activity and some of the key metrics. Let's jump right in. So as I mentioned, our overall data set on the west side of Bend is on the smaller side because there's just fewer of these types of properties on the west side than there are on the east side, and compared to how many are in Redmond. So currently there are 6 properties that are on the market that are 2 to 4 unit properties on the west side. And of those 6, 2 are new in the last month. So we like to see new things coming onto the market. And we like to see things going pending, and we like to see things selling, because that means that the system is working and the flow that we expect is happening. So the average price here is just over $1 million, which is really funny because it's very, very, very similar to the last couple times we've looked at this report over the last couple months. What we see here is an average price per unit right now of just over $500,000, though. And that is actually a bit of a jump from the last couple times we looked at this report at 456 and at 412. So that can simply also just mean that the prices per square foot are a little bit higher, or the units, this is a price per unit number, but sometimes one unit in a small data set like this, if a unit's like a 3 bedroom unit and the other comparable ones in the data set are like 1 bedroom units, and the price per unit is going to fluctuate a little bit that way. So in terms of price per square foot, we do see we're a little bit higher here at 459 than we were at 427, 433 before as well. So people feeling perhaps just a tiny bit more optimistic, maybe. Maybe it's also possible that this small data setting just includes some properties that have a little bit nicer finishes and or maybe a little bit newer and construction date and things like that. Currently, there are 3 properties pending, which is great because when we look at the last couple times we've seen this report, it's just been one in each of these 2 previous periods earlier this year. So we like to see things go pending, which that means deals are on the way towards getting done. It also means that buyers want to buy here. It means that sellers are being somewhat reasonable in terms of what they're asking, and it's making things move along. As you might know, one little bit of data I always like to look at is how many properties have been taken off the market without being sold in the last, say, 6 months. And I do 6 months because I need a long enough time period to be able to see some significant numbers. And the answer is 7 in the last 6 months. But it's the same stat we've had the last couple times I've pulled this report here as well. So things are kind of steady on that front. But those are 7 properties that were, I guess it's possible the seller just changed their mind, but it's also much more likely, I think, that the seller put the property out there just to kind of see what they could get, see what would happen. Wasn't necessarily a completely serious or in earnest effort to sell a property, and they didn't get the response or the pricing that they wanted, and went ahead and took it off the market. So let's look at then the closed transactions. Actually, as I did this report, the closed transactions, nothing new has closed here in the time since the last report, which is just under a month. So we have the same data set here. We have the same metrics here in mid-May as we had in mid-April. So we've had 4 properties close in the past 6 months for just a little over $1 million, $420,000 per square foot. I'm sorry, not per square foot, per unit, $344 per square foot. One thing that's always interesting to look at is the correlation between the active and the closed prices per unit and prices per square foot. So let's just have a look at that. Price per unit here of what's being asked is 500,000, but what actually closed was 420. That's pretty big. That's a pretty big gap, 25% gap in those 2 figures. Similarly, The current sellers are asking $459 a square foot, but the ones that have closed are actually at $344 per square foot. So again, a big gap too. So what we see is up here, people are swinging for the fences, and and down here, this is sort of our definition of what's been a little bit more realistic in the last 6 months or so. So that is our market report for the west side of Bend, northwest and southwest Bend. If you are thinking about buying or thinking about selling a plex, plexes are all I do, 2, 3, and 4 unit properties. Why? Because that's what I built my portfolio on. I have about 50 doors as of right now of units just like this in Bend, in Portland, and this is what I built my portfolio on. And I like to be inch wide and mile deep in terms of my expertise and experience and the things that I work with my clients on. So if you'd like to discuss your property or the property you'd like to buy, feel free to reach out. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.